Look, everyone, I am going to be very brief, but what I love about this event is you're meeting people you've never met before, and you're speaking with one another. I think I said to a few of you that I've hosted many roundtables, particularly on anti-hate and anti-racism, to bring people together and to really be in the spirit of Canadian values and looking out for one another. I always like to start by telling people I grew up in a small town called New Glasgow, Nova Scotia. 10,000 people, 9,999 since I left. And it was a joke. There's probably 2 other people that left. But one thing that we grew up with is the fact that neighbors always help neighbors. And it was really important that whether it was the neighbor giving you a cup of milk to make some food, or if it was to drive your children to school, or standing up for the child that was vulnerable at the schoolyard, was always something that was ingrained in me. I've been your MPP for 6 terms. That equates to 18 years. And never before, though I have seen it before, have I seen this much hate, not only in our community, but in our city, throughout this province, and of course around Canada and elsewhere in the world. And I could have many, and I promise you, I could have many roundtables. And we could all feel better because we've gotten what was bothering us out. But sometimes it doesn't seem like real change. So today, at the sort of the recommendation of a friend of mine, Mandeep Singh, and Mandeep's not here, and if he comes, I'll actually ask him to speak. Mandeep said, you know, part of the challenges that we have is when we're in a variety of different ethnic groups, we don't really have relationships outside of our own community. And I thought, well, what a great idea, because that was such a simple yet profound statement. So I thought, well, why don't I be a catalyst to bring people together to start merging some of our mutual interests, which is a safe community with strong families and a self-reliant community that doesn't require the police or the Prime Minister to make us feel safe. What if our own neighbors helped us feel safe? And so that's why you're here today. Very simple, yet profound gesture that was suggested to me by a Sikh friend. And so today I just really want you guys to feel comfortable meeting people that you don't already know. And then I want you to have a coffee with them and let them know some of the issues your community is facing. And I bet you're going to hear that some of those issues are similar. And in many cases, they might not be. But I look at Salima Ismail and her son a few years ago playing hockey. And, you know, dealt with racism, was highly publicized in the newspaper. I look at Faraha, who lived in my house for a while and has become a leader for Black youth in the province of Ontario, right here in our community. And I know that's the systemic racism she felt as a young Black woman. I know Barati is here. I know Jin is here. And their respective communities, the Indo-Canadian community and the Chinese community, have dealt with that problem. And then right now, and probably the most disgusting acts of racism, is anti-Semitism that's happening here and in Toronto and elsewhere, where we have to stand up because what's happening to them, in my opinion, goes against every Canadian value that I was born to believe in. And so that's why I would like all of you to be here together today, lighthearted, having some fun, but I'm only asking one thing in return. Right over here, we have 5 boards. They ask, what are some of the problems facing your community? What are some possible solutions you have for these problems? What can Ottawa become so it is the best place to live? What is a Canadian value that you'd like to share? And then invite people to community events that you're hosting. Now, having worked with the Jewish community, I can tell you that every night of the week they have an event. So you can add, you're laughing, but it's true. But there's so many events that you can go to. Like I think about the Indo-Canadian Unity Picnic. It's usually out, and it may be changed this year, but it's usually out at Saunders Farm. Show up at it. if there's an organization, that the Chinese community has a number of great events, and some that are coming up this summer. In particular, they do a barbecue out at Britannia Beach, which is amazing to attend. And as I said, the Jewish community is often doing things, particularly now as they're under threat. So write down some of those key events so you can invite people. If you do that for me, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all that information, we're going to codify it, we're going to send it to the Mayor of Ottawa and Ralston King, who's the City Councillor responsible for anti-racism. I'm going to send it to Doug Ford and his nephew, Michael Ford, who is our Minister responsible for anti-racism. I'm going to make sure that we continue our dialogue so that we can continue to support each other. But as Mandeep said, and I wish he were here because he says it much better than I do, if we're able to speak with one another, then we have broken down a barrier right there. So I'm hoping that each one of you will look at another friend here today, support that other friend. Don't hang out with your own friends. You can do that tomorrow. And if you have any questions, just ask me later. But this is really meant to share our mutual goals of a safer community and our mutual dream of having a Canada that we are all very, very proud of. So thank you all very much. Have some food, meet someone new, answer these questions, and then you can go on with the rest of your day.
And I am going to wrap this up by saying this. So I told you where I grew up in a small town. Not much diversity. There was Catholics and there were Protestants. They all came over on the same boat, so I don't know what happened when they got off, but anyway. The reality is when I moved to Ontario, I loved the fact that it was so diverse. The first person actually to see my young daughter at the time when I gave birth was Heather. And I have had a tremendous run. Victoria's 19 now. I've been 18 years elected, and never before has my daughter seen this type of racism that she sees on the campus. So for 18 years, we did pretty good. I've always said when I was Heritage and Tourism Minister that I represent the world in one province. And I was so happy. I could go on a weekend and I could go to a Celtic festival, just like I'm Celtic. I could go to the Lebanese festival. I could go to the Caribbean festival, and I could see people from the Greek community in one weekend, and definitely the Indo-Canadians. You guys are putting a good run for the money with the Jewish community here in Ottawa with your events. But what was really cool is that until she was 7, she thought she was also Jewish. Because we would go, and it starts at, in December, and then it goes straight through. You remember that. And she's your Jewish daughter. And then, we would go right into January, and Jin would have her at the wonderful Chinese New Year. I've never missed a time. And because she was a minor, she wasn't allowed to do that either. And in the summer, we go to the Indo-Canadian events, and we had this wonderful, idyllic sense of what Canada actually was. And right now, in my opinion, it's under threat. And I think that is because too many people are too afraid to speak up, like we are all doing in this room right now, to say enough is enough is enough. They're my neighbors, leave them alone. And to Barati's point, I want to say this. Barati made the point. She has seen terrorism, and 95% of us have had it with the hate, probably even more. So today I want you to leave here, please put something on there so that I can put it in a document that's going to go somewhere. And particularly if you have an event coming up, I'm going to email you back. And at the end of the summer, after hopefully you've been to a few different events, we're going to come back. And every one of you are invited, but you're only allowed entry if you bring one more person. And you bring your neighbor who may speak a different language than you. You bring a neighbor who may look a little different from you. You may bring a colleague who's always been there by your side, no matter what. And we're going to keep growing this movement, okay? I want to thank you for coming here today. I want to thank my staff for putting this on. They work really, really hard, and I'm anal, so that was really good of them to do. But I want to thank all of you for your respective leadership roles. And you have a big role to play in our community. Because there's nothing more heartbreaking than being an MPP or a member of parliament or a city councillor, and I'm sure Carol Ann could attest to that too, when you see hate. And it makes no sense that there's hate. And people only see the label, they don't see the person. And I want to stop that. And the only way I can stop it is with all of you. And we're going to do it together. So thank you all very much. And I'll say this, don't clap yet because I've got the bad news. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here because we have to give them back the room at 1. Thanks, everybody.